Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, August 9th of 2024, and welcome to Resistance Live. It's a Friday in Trump land in its own sort of like unique way. Excuse me while I take a sip of my tea. A little bit of a scratchy throat today. It's very wet and rainy here. We're going to talk about this absolutely bonkers press conference that happened yesterday. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris's simultaneously fantastic speech in front of the UAW. And we're going to talk a lot about media and fallout and kind of like this moment of mainstream media crisis. Many of you I know watched Lawrence O'Donnell last night. We've got a lot to talk about in that regard. First things first, today for our visually challenged viewers, I'm wearing a white t-shirt with a tweed jacket over top. I am a pink-skinned, green-eyed, dirty, blonde-haired woman. My hair is down today, a little out of sorts thanks to all the rain here on the East Coast. I am in front of my big cushy chair and a plant and my oak cabinet, and I am coming to you as always from occupied Muncie, Lenape, and Mohican land. Okay, let's just talk about the press conference first and foremost. Okay, so first of all, I have to thank our subscribers over on the Patreon feed because we have a lot of incredibly talented and gifted people in that community, including former psychiatric professionals. And several of you this morning pointed out, actually some of you are current psychiatric professionals. Some of you this morning pointed out that there were things on display yesterday at this press conference that show in real time just the incredible increasing decline in Trump's mental state. Things that actually in many ways are predictors of psychotic breaks. I have to thank Nancy in particular for shouting this out, that there was pressurization in his speech yesterday that apparently for those who do this kind of work is very much a diagnostic that can be used to evaluate whether or not someone is on the verge of psychosis. There are real things to worry about here if you happen to be the family member of someone who is experiencing this and displaying these kind of symptoms. Not that Donald Trump's family cares about anything other than power and money. But all that said, yesterday's press conference was particularly unhinged. And I have to remind you all that as we've been talking about here, honestly now for almost 8 years, when malignant narcissists get to the point of facing real accountability, breakdowns in their ability to function and sometimes even in their capacity to live in the real world can happen. And what we saw yesterday, if you happen to watch it, and I watched as much of it as I could on the replay, because I was actually in a meeting when it started. If you watched the clips of it even, if you watched any chunk of it live, you know that this was more unhinged than what we have seen from Trump maybe ever, to the point that there was really serious, not just confusion, but delusion about actual facts. So I'm just going to give you guys a couple of examples because I want people to grasp what it is that we saw yesterday that was new. So for instance, one of the things that Trump did was he claimed that he had been in a helicopter crash with Willie Brown, okay, former mayor of San Francisco, someone who was a mentor to Kamala Harris. Willie Brown's name has come up several times because Kamala Harris dated him for a brief window of time. This is not a big deal, okay? Donald Trump was not in a near helicopter crash with Willie Brown. Willie Brown's office has actually denied it this morning, not that he needed to, okay? And the incident that Trump apparently was referring to was an incident involving the former governor of California, Jerry Brown, where there was an incident on a helicopter that did not almost crash, but where there was apparently, they were both on the same helicopter, and apparently there were some technical difficulties. So complete detachment from reality, all right? Then on top of it, he claimed that a friend of his that apparently has been dead for more than 10 years, I'm not joking about this, was having problems with Kamala Harris as a candidate. There are signs of true, not just dementia, but really ongoing detachment from reality happening in what we saw from Donald Trump yesterday. And I have to say that I am concerned, not so much about the end game for him, okay? And not even so much about what he's going to be capable of, because I have to remind you all, and we're going to talk about this more in a minute, he's a lot less powerful now than he was in 2020 and on January 6th of 2021. All right. Everybody needs to remember that. Gavin Newsom made this point this very morning. All right. He is not the president of the United States any longer. But do I have concerns about what we're going to witness? Do I have concerns about what's going to happen next? Kind of. And not from the perspective that I think any of us are in real jeopardy. Okay. I want to make that really clear. But because I think it is going to be truly upsetting to watch. And I say that even as somebody who really wants him off the national stage as much as anybody. Okay. I think that what we are seeing is a true mental breakdown of sorts, some combination of dementia and a malignant narcissist going into narcissistic collapse. So I will also just say one other thing here, okay? Because I got asked a lot of questions about this on the Patreon feed this morning. Reminder, by the way, you want to become a Patreon subscriber, you can ask me questions before every broadcast for 3 hours now, okay? And I will answer them in writing or live on the broadcast itself. And it's super cheap. Subscription started as little as $5 a month. I was asked a number of questions about whether or not I thought he would drop out or he would be replaced or the GOP would force him out. No, I don't think that's going to happen. First of all, reminder, malignant narcissists can never admit that they've got anything wrong with them. They cannot admit any show of weakness. But second of all, the GOP is not going to do that. They don't have another viable candidate. They're all in. They've sold their souls. The GOP is now the party of MAGA. It is literally nothing else. So I will tell you all that I think that what we saw yesterday is not only a sign of Trump's insanity, which we have always known about to some extent. It's just a question of how rapid the decline is now. But it's also a sign of the fact that he's not really competent any longer to even campaign. And, the irony of this is that I was asked, I think it was yesterday or the day before on the broadcast, about whether or not, why it was that Trump wasn't out on the campaign trail. And what I said was because I didn't think that the campaign itself could trust him any longer to not really screw it up, right? That he's so far gone at this point that every time he opens his mouth, there's a problem. And yesterday was a prime example of this. I also said that I thought the reason why he was hosting the press conference to begin with was because too much attention was being paid to Harris Walls and that he was having his own malignant injury and that he probably did it without any approval from the campaign or at the bare minimum with very little help. So I have my concerns just about what we're going to witness. And I think that for anybody who happens to be sensitive or compassionate to anybody, and I know that's very hard in light of who Donald Trump is, but I will just say this for those of us who have seen people have psychotic breaks or have seen people decline in dementia, this is going to be really painful to watch, like sickening, and it's going to get worse. I'm just, bye. There goes the troll bell. By the way, I have to thank everybody yesterday on the broadcast who continued to send me memes in the comments on yesterday's broadcast about needing more troll bell. Because I have to say, I laughed all afternoon at everybody who invoked the cowbell meme with regard to my troll bell. You guys really were hilarious. And I'm so grateful to all of our subscribers here for just cracking me up nonstop. Okay, so in light of this, we have to talk about the mainstream media because Lawrence O'Donnell did an incredible 24-minute segment last night. And again, it's posted on my Threads feed this morning if you want to go watch it, about why the mainstream media is giving him such a pass, why there was no pushback. And Lawrence did this brilliant thing of showing how Karine Jean-Pierre has been screamed at by the White House press corps, about how Joe Biden has been shouted down by the White House press corps. And yet here's Donald Trump talking literal gibberish. And the mainstream media won't ask him a follow-up question, won't call him on the carpet, will not ask him what he means by anything, will not challenge him on the idea that like there's post-birth abortion happening or anything else, right? Like it is the corporate media has lost the chain of command over the way in which information is being distributed in this country. And we can all have a debate about why, right? Like, you all know my view on this is that this is fundamentally about corporate profit, right? Inside, I'm not going to say they like Trump. I'm going to say that what they see with Trump is that the weirder he gets, the more that they are compelled to leave him alone because the weirdness generates clicks and clicks generate money, right? But again, I have to point out that I think it is hugely amoral at this point to allow him to go unchecked in the way that the media did yesterday for 90 minutes. I also think it's like abhorrently bad judgment to air that live on every network and then not cut to Kamala Harris when she is giving a speech in front of the UAW that is like incredibly compelling. Again, that was played in total from start to finish by Lawrence O'Donnell last night in the first 24 minutes of his broadcast. You should go watch it. It is perhaps one of the most compelling speeches I have ever seen about the importance of labor in this country and the importance of supporting working people and why Democrats are the party of the working class. Like, you should go watch it. You should go watch it. It should have been what ate up all that airtime yesterday. And all I was able to see, just like everybody else, was like the last 3 minutes on MSNBC. And that's almost like criminal at this point from a moral standpoint in the context of where we are. To give airtime to Trump spewing lies, gibberish, fascist talking points, and nonsense, and simultaneously then to avoid airing not just an incredibly competent speech, but an incredibly moving and compelling speech about what Democrats stand for, about what it means to fight for the principles that you believe in and the shared values of American democracy. Like, it was awesome, like really powerful, really strong, really necessary. And I truly think that at this point, there's going to have to be a real, and thank God for people like Lawrence O'Donnell and Joy Reid, because Joy Reid endorsed Lawrence the second his broadcast was done yesterday. Thank God for journalists that actually really still care, because the other thing Lawrence O'Donnell did was he called his own network on the carpet about this. He challenged MSNBC for airing like Olympic coverage in the place of Kamala Harris's speech. And, truly, I think this is really at this point something that is going to lead to a watershed moment in corporate media. Like, who are they? What do they represent? Are they actually serving us any longer? And, I will just remind you all that one of the reasons why we have to be very thoughtful about where we put our attention is that if we are paying our attention to news organizations or news figures, for that matter, that are doing things like giving airtime to Stephen Miller, which, by the way, one of the MSNBC anchors did this week. Okay. Like, if you are giving your attention to people who are doing stuff like that and to reporters who are refusing to do their jobs by calling out the nonsense related to Donald Trump, to networks that are refusing to fact check him, okay, you are reinforcing the current cycle of amplification of Donald Trump and normalization of his fascism and his insanity in exchange, frankly, for the potential future of democracy. So I truly, at this point, I don't have any problem with telling people to stop watching it, right? And I'm gonna go one further today, because I have to say that the other thing that happened on the Patreon feed this morning, which, I just continue to be like, I'm getting angrier and angrier about it by the minute, okay? And this is not a matter of like competition or how many subscribers another commentator has or anything like that. Like, we've talked about, the way in which white supremacist misogyny plays out in subscribers to YouTube channels like mine, meaning like, people automatically give more credence to white men even when they're unqualified, and they're doing a disservice than they do to women and marginalized people who are providing more in-depth, more responsible coverage when we're talking about things like new media. All right. But I'm just going to say this, like, I am really sick to death at this point of people on our side of the fence creating broadcasts on YouTube that just terrify people. Like, they're just as bad. Does everybody understand this? They're just as bad as corporate news stations who refuse to back check Donald Trump, who like air the things that he says in real time without any reflection, without any analysis, right? The people on YouTube who are making videos that say, here's the terrifying truth about how Republicans are going to steal the election, are not serving their audience. They're not. What they are doing is simply terrifying people. And worse yet, they're doing it for ad revenue, because they have learned the lesson that when you generate fear, you generate clicks. They're just as bad. Okay. And, this is something that really bothers me. The course that I created, Truth or Fiction, by the way, we haven't talked about this in a while, but, you guys can go and check it out if you want to. Okay. Truth or Fiction. It is a media literacy course that we started all the way back in the spring, because it was really important to me to empower this audience to learn about media literacy in real time, okay? And to learn how to vet the people that you're listening to. I'm going to say one other thing here. It is more important than it has ever been to do this with new media, meaning like news sources that you are watching on Twitter, rather on YouTube, news sources that you are watching on TikTok or on Instagram. It is critically important that you understand whether or not the people who are talking to you are qualified to speak about what they're speaking about and whether or not what they are telling you is true. Is it reliable? Can you count on it? Should you even allow it to impact the way that you think or feel? All right. I mean, you can go take the class if you want to, but I'm also just going to tell you something, and you should, but I'm also just going to tell you something else here. All right. Anybody right now who is out there scaring you with information without also providing you with solutions is not doing good work. Okay. They're not doing good work. They're doing work to line their own profits with ad revenue off of YouTube because they know that fear sells. Okay. And it's amoral. It's amoral. It doesn't matter to me whether or not they're like an alleged new media network that you all have been listening to for the last 6 years. If they had fallen down that rabbit hole, they are not doing the right thing by American democracy, by their audiences, or by any of you. Okay. And I'm tired of it. I'm like exhausted by it. I'm also just going to say this. You should not be listening to anybody go on and on and on about the law if they don't have a law degree. Okay. You should not be listening to anybody go on and on and on about political organizing if they have no experience doing it. You should not be listening to random folks who literally haven't had an audience for until the last 3 months if they have literally no experience in politics. Okay. Like I am truly, truly sick of it. And one of the reasons why I'm sick of it doesn't have to do with the fact that there is a moral code that should go along with this. And one of the things traditional journalism used to have was a code of ethics. Like the Society of American Journalists has a code of ethics. And do you know what? One of the top 4, they have like these 4 overarching umbrella codes of ethics. And then they've got like dozens of things underneath it that journalists are supposed to follow. But one of those top 4 is do no harm. Do no harm. And I will just tell you that the random new media figures who are running around on Twitter right now, scaring the pants off of you that the election is about to be stolen without actual facts, without actually like anything other than some idiot at the Heritage Foundation spewing on nonsense out of his mouth, right? Those people are doing harm. They're doing harm to actual people in this audience. How do I know this? Because you all come onto the Patreon feed and ask me about it. You ask me to talk you off the ledge. You tell me that you're terrified, right? That is not helping American democracy, right? It's not. All it's doing is scaring people for ad revenue. That's amoral. That's amoral. It's irresponsible and it's anti-democratic, okay? And I know that, people are going to get their information where they want to get their information, but it is more, you have more of an obligation in this environment where corporate media is already failing us and you're getting your news elsewhere to vet and verify what you are seeing on social media channels that is appearing as news or commentary, okay? And this, you all can go look me up, right? You can go find my bar association information in the New York State Bar Association. You can do that, okay? You can Google me and learn about my entire history and the fact that I've been an activist since I was 15 and I've worked presidential campaigns since I was 17 and I've been a mobilizer of like some of the biggest movement-based events in the last 7 years. An 800-city mobilization in response to family separation, right? Like you can find out my cred. You can find out that I used to teach at Columbia Law School, right? And you can also verify if you've been here for a while, or you've had any dealings with me, that like I'm not here to terrify you, right? I am here to share legitimate fact-based information and teach you how to solve the problems that we face in American democracy. Like that's literally it. Okay. So let me just say this, because this whole thing, and it started with Maddow, but it has gone completely off the rails with like alleged left-leaning commentators on YouTube right now. And I'm just so pissed off about it. Like scaring people doesn't help. Okay. So let me just say this. All right. There's been a lot of fact checking in recent days about this idea that somehow there are these election deniers in office. Okay. The reason why the whole basis for this is that there are people who now are in charge of election monitoring who have some Facebook posts that appear to, or like Twitter posts that appear to indicate that they're election deniers. All right. Does that mean they're going to succeed? Does that mean they're going to have the authority as lone wolf actors inside an enormous state-based mechanism to count votes to throw the election? Does it mean they're not going to have any consequences if they try to do it, or that there's not going to be lawsuits, or that Mark Elias and a million other lawyers aren't lining up already to help? It doesn't mean any of those things. And I'm just going to tell you one other thing. It is incredibly critical right now that you understand that the answer to all of this, from the perspective of like the people who are trying to scare you, is simply getting out the vote in numbers too big to be effed with. Like, that's the answer. That's the answer. Okay? If we win Georgia by 100,000 votes, there's not going to be any like, let me place a phone call to Brad Raffensperger and tell him I need 11,000 whatever votes, right? If we win Wisconsin or we win Michigan by enormous numbers, which is, by the way, looking possible right now. Kamala Harris is up by like multiple percentage points, okay? There will be no way around this, okay? So the answer to all of this, like truly, the answer to all of this lies with us. And anybody who's not telling you that is doing you a disservice, okay? We have an and this is why, like this whole year, you know, again, love you all who are brand new subscribers, but those of you who've been with me for almost 8 years now, you know that this is not new here, right? That, you know, my perspective on the world and on mobilization and on getting out the vote has been very clear for a very long time. Power to the people in participatory democracy. You have to activate where you live to create the change that you want to see. And that's the answer. And if enough of us do it, this whole thing of like, the election's going to be stolen is going to be a no-brainer. Like it's going to be over before it even starts. Now, I do want to be rational with all of you because I know we started with Trump being insane. And I want to say something here that I think is very important. All right. I don't doubt that Trump is going to call for violence. Okay. I don't doubt that he's going to be like unhinged beyond anything that we could ever imagine between now and the election. Okay. I am quite suspicious at this point that we're going to see an actual psychotic break. Okay. All that said, please remember, and again, like this is really key. He is not the president of the United States. He is not in charge of the Department of Homeland Security Cybersecurity Division. He's not in charge of the Election Protection Unit. Thank the gods that job at the highest level falls to Joe Biden and Alexander Mayorkas. Okay. And I can guarantee you that they are prepped. They are ready. They know that there is a strong likelihood, Joe Biden himself flagged this yesterday, that there's going to be attempts to interfere with the election results, okay? And they're prepared. Now, there will be debate amongst legal commentators about whether or not we're prepared, quote unquote, enough. Like I saw some people talking about this even this morning on Threads. Fine. We can have debates about whether or not how much preparation is enough, all right? But we are not in a situation where the mechanisms of government, like they were in 2020 and 2021, will be weaponized to guarantee an election result. Trump has no power left. Does everybody understand that? The only power he has is in like taking radicalized white men and motivating lone wolf violence. Okay. And the rest of it, you know, like reminder that the Proud Boys is in prison, Oath Keepers in prison, 1,400 people from the January 6th insurrection are in prison. Okay. Like we are not in the same situation that we were. And I need people to get grounded. Trump is going to say very horrible, frightening things. No question about it. Okay. And there may be some organized effort. I can't say there won't be by like far right neo-Nazis in this country, Patriot Front or whatever the hell the khaki mafia is calling themselves now, to like, you know, do something violent and outrageous around the election. Okay. That could happen. But do I think we're unprepared? No. And do I think it's so terrifying that all of us should be sitting at home cowering? Absolutely not. Do I think that all of us should be like, oh my God, the sky is falling from a YouTube video from a commentator who's out there trying to make money for himself? No, I do not. I think your energy is best dedicated right now to doing the thing that we know will solve the problem. And that is simply working with every moment that you can spare to get out the vote. Like that's the answer. That's the answer. All right. So forgive my rant or don't. But I've just had enough of this. Like I've really had enough of this BS. And if somebody is terrifying you with this stuff, you should stop watching them. Like seriously, unsubscribe from their YouTube channel. Don't allow them to take up space in your head. They are not serving the greater good. I mean it. I mean it. It's not healthy. It's like actually emotionally damaging. And it's destructive to democracy, even if they claim to be progressive, even if they visited the White House. Okay. They're not doing a service to all of us who really need to be focused right now on getting out the vote. Okay. All right. I want to talk for a second, speaking of that, to all of our many overseas followers. I love you guys. You're awesome. Okay. Like I have to say, I saw already this morning, I know we have Bangkok in the house. I know we have Sweden. I know we have Northern Ireland. Hey, Belfast. I saw you log in really early today. We have people in Costa Rica. We've got people in Singapore. Okay. We have American voters all over the world who watch this broadcast. So I'm going to remind you all, your votes really, really matter this year. And Democrats Abroad, which is an incredibly great organization, okay, is doing voter mobilization for American expats literally everywhere, planet-wide, okay? If you are a foreign national and you care about American democracy, you could volunteer with Democrats Abroad to help them get out the vote where you live, okay? Everybody needs to do their part, but I'm also just going to point something else out here because I think it's really, really important. Overseas votes, right, and absentee ballots are often a place that is kind of overlooked for voter mobilization, when in fact they are enough to change elections, okay? If every overseas national who lives abroad actually voted in every election, I know a lot of you do, like I'm waving at all of you in the comments who are saying that you actually vote. Hi, Germany. You should not only make sure that you vote and that you know how to get your ballot and you know how to get it back in time, okay? But also you should be volunteering with Democrats Abroad, like seriously. Because I know so many of you who are American expats are in community with other Americans where you live, right? You're in Facebook groups and you're in chats and you're in international groups that you're all working together on. You've got your kids in international schools. Like, please make sure you are not neglecting the opportunity to get out the vote where you live, including outside of the US. All right. Like really critical, really, really critical. Okay. Last thing, there is some factual news around the January 6th case that a lot of us overlooked yesterday because there was so much going on in the breaking news cycle. Okay. Jack Smith actually asked for an extension yesterday of time to file his pretrial papers that had been ordered by Judge Chutkan to be filed today. He asked for an extension to August 30th. Now, I'm just going to say this. Jack Smith knows what he's doing. I'm sure he has a very good reason for this. The paper itself that he filed was only a page and a half. And essentially what it said was that the special counsel's office is still trying to figure out how the law of the case in front of the Supreme Court on presidential immunity would apply to the facts of this case. Okay. Now, I know that there's another legal commentator out there who is wildly speculating, and I wish he would say that it's wild speculation, that this request somehow shows some tension between Merrick Garland and Jack Smith. I'm sorry, but I don't buy that. Like, I actually don't think that's what's going on. My suspicion of what's happening here is that Jack Smith and his team are evaluating how they can present the evidence related to January 6th before the election in a hearing related to presidential immunity. And essentially what they're doing is preparing for trial, like a mini trial. We've talked about this. And the time that it takes to do that is a lot longer than a week, which is essentially what Judge Chutkan gave them when she got the case back from the Supreme Court. So personally, at this point, we will wait and see for further explanation of like what this is about, assuming that the pleading is filed on the 30th of August. There was no opposition to this from Trump's trial team for obvious reasons. So the likelihood of the extension being granted is a given. Okay. But I do think that, again, this is one of those situations where we want Jack Smith to get it right. Because if there is going to be an evidentiary hearing, aka a mini trial, on the issue of presidential immunity and Donald Trump's conduct related to it in advance of the election, that has to be a locked down, airtight presentation of evidence. Okay? Because we don't want them to screw it up. If they screw it up, it could result in the overturning of a guilty verdict down the road. Because the judge is going to rule on what evidence is admissible in a trial. All right. So incredibly important at this point that we trust Jack Smith, that he knows what he's doing. We've never seen him ask for a delay before, by the way. I want to point this out. This is an incredibly unique situation with this special counsel. So, you're going. Bye-bye. Ding. More troll bell. Again, you guys have just like completely cracked me up. That's going to be a meme that's stuck in my head for like all time now. Okay. So in any event, I don't want anybody to get terribly upset about it. And I will also point out, you're going to. People are really funny. If you tell me to chill out, I will not allow you to stay here. So one of the things that I just want to close on today is this, okay? Like, we do have this development in the case. We've got a lot of other things happening here in the context of the election, all right? And the good news about where we are is that, like a month ago, I think if this delay had happened, all of us would be freaking out, right? We would all be like, why is there one more delay? Why is this, and I have to say that the Harris-Walz campaign has given us a very clear roadmap on this, right? Many of you saw that there's been this like resurgence of the lock him up chant at some Harris-Walz rallies, and they have a new way of dealing with this. What they are saying now, what Harris is saying when it happens is the courts will deal with that, but we're going to beat him in November. And that's the really good news about where we're at, right? Like, let me just remind you all of this, that yeah, I know there's another guy here. I'm going to get him. I know you all want more Troll Bell. You're hilarious. You're like, you're really cracking me up. One of the things that's really great about where we are right now is that, like, with the momentum that we have and all this hope and positive energy and all the good work everybody is doing to get out the vote, we can afford to be a lot less worried about like a 3-week delay or a 2.5-week delay in Judge Chutkan's courtroom, right? Because if we win in November, this is the other thing you all have to remember. Like, he's going to prison and he's probably going to die there because it will all be over. He's not going to have any basis or any power to eliminate or interfere with the trial schedules for anything any longer. All right. So I'm just really grateful for, I said this last night on Threads. It's almost like we jumped timelines, right? I don't know how many of you watched like Loki, the show, but it's like we jumped timelines, right? It's literally like we are now in a different space than we were a month ago. The proceeding of legal events, the proceeding of political events now has a whole new flavor to it. And it's really, really, really nice. So take confidence in that. And, my reminder to all of you, again, is like, work to get out the vote. Like, get on the mailing list of your local Democratic Party. Get on the mailing list for your local Indivisible chapter and Red Wine and Blue and Black Voters Matter and Voto Latino. I got an email this morning, like from my local Democratic Party, about door knocking that's happening tomorrow on behalf of a representative here. So like, you really got to make sure you're in the loop and that you're stepping out to do the work. So yeah, I think that's it for today. Very passionate broadcast today, my friends. Please don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share this broadcast with everyone you know. I have to thank specifically our Patreon subscribers. Please head on over there and join that community. It's awesome. You guys rock. I learn things from you every day. I'm so grateful for your support. You guys are so sweet. And it's such a supportive community of like-minded people. All 4,000 and plus of you. You're great. You rock. Okay. So thankful for all of you. And I also just want to remind everyone here that we do have a progressive coffee hour for our Patreon only subscribers coming up this weekend. Stay tuned for a time on that over on the Patreon feed. I think it's going to be at like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning, but stay tuned. There will be an announcement about that. And please get out this weekend and do something to get out the vote. Even if it's just having a conversation with your neighbor, make sure you are doing something to move the ball forward. Get involved, take action, do some phone banking or text banking from your couch. Right? Go to mobilize.us and sign up for an event. Make sure you're ordering your Harris gear and you're wearing it and you're sporting it and you're sticking it in your front yard. I have a Harris for President sign in one of my windows right now here in this apartment. Like, do your part. Do your part. Because if all of us do our part, it's going to be a landslide. I truly think so. All right. Love you guys. I will catch you all here live on Monday if I don't see you on Progressive Coffee Hour over the weekend. And of course, if there's a need for an emergency broadcast, I will be back. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Stay dry for everyone on the East Coast dealing with the aftermath of Debbie. And I'll see you all here real soon. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.